welcome. I was going to take some time to get off to start by introducing ourselves to Michelle from LULAC, but she is not here. If she does go up and join us, or even if it's online, I'd like for us to take some time to introduce ourselves to her. I don't necessarily think we need to introduce ourselves to each other this time. So I just want to start by thanking you for exercising patience with us and sticking with us. I know there's a lot of frustration that we've lost momentum, and we join you in that frustration. We had a world of, we'll say, opportunities of other workload that gets in the way, and then personal issues as well. But we've made it this far, and we are recommitted to maintaining the momentum that we gained from this meeting and moving forward into our open house, which we've scheduled for later this month, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And then going forward with the park board and taking a plan to council to hear in this first quarter or early April of 2024. So hopefully we can get on to the next steps and get this plan in action. But of course, we don't want to skip these steps. We don't want to move forward through them too fast, because we want to hear your opinions and take those into consideration as we finalize this plan. So, thanks everybody for coming and joining us, and Mark for being online. So if you're, just to let you know, there are restrooms in this building. They're behind that door back there. There's 2 restrooms. We do have snacks. There's a garbage can in the back if you need it. If you're joining us online, I think, is Mark muted? Mm-hmm. Right. So Mark, I think if you just put your hand up if you're ready to say something, and then we'll let you have the floor. You have your hand up. Do you want to say something? You're just waving. Just waving. All right. The meeting is being recorded. Right. Mm-hmm. All right. And steering committee members may participate in the conversation. You can ask questions, talk to each other, but the public can only observe the meeting and may not ask questions or participate. We will have the January 24th open house, and that's where the public can interact and share their thoughts and ask all the questions they want. All right, so our agenda for today is going to review some of the progress that we've made since the last meeting, talk about the next administrative steps that we have for finishing the plan, and then the next steps that are touched on in the draft plan. We're going to have some time for each of you to share your thoughts on the plan that you've read, and then we'll have an open discussion where you can all exchange ideas and information, and then we'll talk about the open house and the next steps after that. All right, so since our last meeting, I'll just start with the workshop. I think Heather Tishman is trying to join online and having a problem. Let me look at this. Sorry. Okay, so since our workshop that was in March of last year, I think we all know that Marcella from LULAC was unable to attend that workshop, and so we didn't have any input from LULAC there. And so I met with who was the interim executive of LULAC, Peter Block Garcia, and he identified 3 other folks from the local LULAC organization. We shared all of the information that had been shared with you, all of the documents, all of the meeting minutes. I did a presentation for them to kind of bring them up to speed as best I could, so that they could complete that Build a Farm workshop. And so if you look at the groups 1 through 6, they're number 6 on there, and those were their responses. Also, since our last year, we completed the purchase of the hidden property, which, if you can see, we have Heritage Farm and Hazeldale Park here. And Mark, I'm pointing at the screen and you can't see me, but it's the teal box on the east side of the park. I'm sorry, the east side of the farm. We purchased that property, closed on it, I think in November, somewhere around there. September, October, November. And the intent of that purchase is that any public access trails that take people from the northeast corner up through to Hazeldale Park or to the south end of the park can be routed through that area, keep people off of that maintenance road. So it was an opportunity that we jumped on.
And how many acres are you talking about?
So it's a 10-acre parcel. Most of it is regulated wetlands,
Perfect.
as well as very steep slopes. So it's zoned like it could be a dense housing, but there's only less than an acre that's really
Yeah.
developable without a lot of
Yeah.
permitting and process. So we paid too
So
much,
now it's a there.
but that was the appraised value.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's just my opinion. But I'm a buyer, so everything I buy is way too much. So it has a lot of other natural resource values and features. They have continued headwaters of Cougar Creek as well. So again, it continues to meet some of those county priorities. In addition, because of that slope and its elevation gain, it provides us additional trying to meet ADA requirements. It's always longer to go up, and so that provides that opportunity to go over in there if it's feasible at the time we start doing that program.
But it doesn't appear to go to 78th Street, is that correct?
Correct. So Mark can't do this, but at 78th at the top of the picture, that you'll see some parcels. This one of those or two of those are already owned through Public Works from the roadside. I think is that future road expansion. And then there is a couple other parcels that are owned privately. I think another one of those is for sale at a low price, of course. That is have the same restrictions on it. So
And this parcel is part of Heritage Farm.
no,
It's separate, it's a separate program.
it's a separate parcel. I think it's being brought forward is because it can create added value in regards to future plans that are in the master plan for and as an adjacent asset. So
It will allow us, if the habitat restrictions on it are, will permit it to make the connection from the lower part of the farm to the upper part of the farm without having a trail going up the existing farm road. That was why it was intriguing to us when their realtor approached us about the property. The other parcel that is for sale, I called them last year sometime. It's on the east side of the right of way, so it's all blackberry right now, and they want more than we can afford, and claim to have, commercial interest in it.
They're new to the county, eh?
No, I'm not new. I just told them.
No, I meant the people who
Oh,
think it has
yeah,
commercial
no, I
value.
I told them if they wanted to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call me back.
So we've also provided updates on the plan progress and what we've been working on to the Heritage Farm Advisory Team over the last year, and also made a presentation to the Historic Preservation Commission as well. And then Rocky, do you want to talk about the next bullet with the conservation covenant?
yeah, so I think the end of 22, council had wanted to investigate putting some sort of conservation covenant or easement across the property. That was reviewed in 23, and we went back to council in November with a draft conservation covenant that would provide that layer of protection over the farm. It was by the county, to the county, for the county. We didn't have a third party in being, so there was a potential risk in the future that a future council could just remove it. So they asked us to investigate some alternatives, a third party, another program. So we are looking at that right now, and hope to go back this quarter to council with a revised plan to again put that conservation covenant over it.
Concept of permanency doesn't seem to be coming in.
No, that's why
Yeah.
it wasn't moved forward, is
Sure,
because there
of
was
course.
that still risk. So that's where we're looking at potentially a legacy and land covenant over it, which would provide an RCW protection, a conversion requirement if there was to be a change. There's there's rules and laws associated with how to do that. And it's consistent, we do that for farming and forest land as well as vegetable preservation, which again is consistent with what this site is used for. So as such that we're having that review, we'll bring back the options or preferred options to council and hopefully get that covenant or easement recorded before this plan is adopted. So that'll be one of those things that we hope to have in the file book.
Sure.
As another emblem on the old.
Yeah, right.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was something that I was pushing pretty hard. If that's something you can keep us updated on, I would love to know, like, when you have, I didn't realize that went for council. I'd love to see whatever materials you send out, if you could let us know when that's.
Sure.
available.
Would you like to see what we presented already, or would you like to see the future?
So I would like to see.
We can give you we can send you a link to the council record. It's in the council record, what they reviewed, that's the public record. And we were only made aware of this effort late in the game, property and.
So there's a lot of work with our
Attorney.
prosecuting attorney's office.
Yeah.
And then it went to our attorney, and then we got involved at the in regards to doing the actual covenant and structuring that. So I can get you, I can't remember if I have an actual staff report, but we have a copy of the draft covenant. Please note that it may appear yellow, and what we get approved will be blue. So there's going to be changes for the next iteration, just as a heads up, at least it's a foundation. So we'll, I'll make sure I don't think I did that this morning, but I'll get you the covenant if it's not already in that record. We'll link to the
Okay, and that's for the past one.
for the past one.
For the upcoming one,
When we have something that's ready to go to council, we'll let you know and give you a copy of whatever that is.
We plan on, when I was going to address later, is when we go to the park board, we go to council for this plan, and we can include that as one of the tasks we're going to let them know if you want to participate.
thank you very much.
David, will you send that link to all of us?
I'm gonna send it to Linda. I'll just,
It'll go out to everyone.
yeah, I'll put it together and then she can send it out to everybody.
So just to clarify, that third party is that you're thinking of, when you said something about legacy.
So,
Is that the third party that you're talking about?
no. So a third party would be Christine Perry with the existing conservation covenant as a party. The Conservation Futures Program, that's a county-run program, is managed by RCWs, would be that alternative. That's the other alternative we're looking at, to be a conservation covenant through that program. And we have a manual that identifies process. There's a standard process. We're working with other private property owners trying to put conservation covenants, essentially removing their development rights from farmland. It's essentially say that it has to be in its current condition as farm ag, consistent with the master plan in the future. And then and with that system, it would actually put an additional anchor. So if we just had a covenant, conservation covenant, and Christine was the holder of that, and you agreed to remove that covenant, and then went to council to remove. With the conservation futures, conservation covenant on it, legacy lands conservation covenant on it, there's RCW rules that you have to follow, and you wouldn't be able to remove it. It's there. You'd have to remove it, you have to buy another piece of property and transfer that over to it. So there's a conversion process, which makes it, I think, from my perspective, even more permanent in regards to the concerns that were being communicated about the perception that it was going to be sold for whatever that other thing is.
Any other questions about that?
That covenant would be the third layer of protection, because we have a master plan that stipulates what needs to be done, and that would be a public process and was adopted. We're gonna have the sustainability plan, which has gone through a public process and hopefully will be adopted. And then if we have the conservation easement or conservation covenant, there's sort of three layers of missing protection. Oh, and the historic
Oh,
overlay, which.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, would protect.
I'm just trying to get on to that.
Oh, so it's already done.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, please, yeah.
there's a lot that keeps Heritage Farm anchored with this property. So,
No. There's no one that we can see in the meeting that's trying to get on, but we'll keep an eye out.
Okay.
Were there any other questions or conversation about the covenant, the easement? Where did they?
I'm curious, we have to talk about it now, but I'm curious how it interfaces with what's in the plan and if there's any kind of, I don't know, things to be aware of about what can and can't happen. We can address that later.
yeah,
In regards to a covenant or?
Would there be any restrictions possibly that could impact what the plan illustrates?
Oh, good question. So if a future master plan came through and said it was gonna do something that wasn't consistent with that RCW, then that would be a no-go option. So that element, but all the things that are listed in the master plan right now and in the proposed master plan, and it's been discussed in the sustainability plan, would be consistent, from my understanding of the legacy land programming. And the issue, the core thing that would be is that commercial use of the property would not be allowed. So I couldn't have a concessionaire come in and operate the farm for profit. So that would be that's a big thing. A lot of times with legacy lands is, the example they always use is a boat ramp in a marina. You know, you put a boat ramp in the marina on there. It's fine and dandy if the county owns it, but if they send it out to an operator through a lease or concessionaire agreement, can't do that. Or a golf course where you're like Tri-Mountain, where we have a third party that's generating that.
Anybody else? Oh, you look like you had something you wanted to say or.
No, I just thinking I'd be quiet. Shut you out.
All right. Well, the last bullet is that we developed the draft sustainability plans here. Or that you have. So our next steps, I'm just gonna go through some administrative steps first, and then we'll go into a little bit more into the steps that are involve implementing the plan. So we need your comments by January 5th, which is Friday. We're going to review those comments, which we've already received some from a few folks, but we do need written comments, just not the things that you say out loud here in the meeting, but actual email or some way of you communicating those to me. We intend to post the draft plan on January 17th, which will be a week before the open house. It's scheduled for January 24th. That'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. at Minnehaha Elementary School. We will have a public comment period that'll start on the day that the plan is posted, and then it will end on February 23rd. It'll give us around a little over 30 days total for folks to make comments to those. We have an email address that's established, and that will be communicated on at the open house. It'll be on the website, all the places where people will be able to obtain the plan. We will finalize that sustainability plan and take it to the Park Advisory Board. Our intent is to be there on March 12th. And then we will present the final sustainability plan to Clark County Council hopefully in April. That's all dependent on their schedules and when we get on and the priorities and whatnot. So, but like I said earlier, our intent is that we will let you know as far in advance as we can of those meetings once they're no longer tentative, but the dates are actually set so that you have time. And you can join either online or in person to any of those meetings. So the plan that you read discusses some near-term steps, and I just want to kind of go through those. We're not going to go through the entire plan because you've already read it, and we want to get into your conversations and hear your thoughts on it. But we thought it would be important to talk about some of the near-term steps. So in the plan, it discusses that we are going to finalize the lease adjustments and revenue schedule for farm services and infrastructure usage, which is something that I think we've already been working on for the past year. And I think you said that you're fairly close to finalizing the lease.
Yeah, all those leases are completed there and they're reviewing.
And then we intend to begin the development of the public access trail with interpretive stops within construction to be completed in 2027. That is on our approved capital plan that was approved in November of last year, 2023. And that process will have a lot of steps in it too. And one of those first steps will be kind of like listening sessions on a meeting with farm user groups to kind of understand those safety and security concerns that people are going to have about having public access trails on site, how we're going to keep people on those trails and out of the farming areas. That first phase of trail development might include access from Hazeldale Park, or it might be from the northeast corner, just depending upon the feasibility of it and how it works out with the hidden property and all of the different things that could be impacted there.
Part of the reason that we're looking at making the connection from Hazeldale is the wetland project timeline and the permitting. So we received pretty clear feedback from at least one of the council members that waiting till the wetland project was permitted, constructed, and substantially complete to start doing planning work on making a public access improvement at the farm was unacceptable in their opinion. And so we have a master plan that we're working on, master plan update that we're working on at Hazeldale. And so we're exploring making the connection that's on the Heritage Farm master plan to Hazeldale Park during that process. So.
And we know that there's a lot of apprehension, I think, from folks that are using the farm for having a connection to Hazeldale. And equally, there's a lot of people that live south of Hazeldale that use Hazeldale Park and that really want to be able to walk trails at the farm and have access from the south side. Anybody have any thoughts or questions about that? Before we move on?
You might have said this and I just missed it. Public information about that, will there be open meetings for people to hear about how that trail is being developed and have input to that, or
Yeah, so
will it be a final plan that's presented?
So through this process right now, we're doing is just the master plan update for Hazeldale, which will give you a conceptual line on the ground. And then if there was something to move forward to construction, there'd be a process where we go out for a 30 to 60% design, public open houses. It's our standard process there. So we'll have a public process for any of those future development projects.
Also specific to the trail development at the farm.
We'll be working with the farm partners to address the concerns that we can address. It's not unlike a lot of our park master plan processes where we identify partners beyond just the general public that we have individual meetings with. Will be the same thing for this project.
I know the public's just really invested in the trail, and so I just wondered what the process was for including them. Because there has been so much input from the public for the trail.
Yeah, we anticipate, I don't know whether we're going to be talking about that connection at the Hazeldale master plan.
I think we're going to show the locations that we think that they will be.
Yeah.
But we won't be talking about what that trail looks like on the farm property.
Okay.
Can you remind me when that meeting is? I know it's been changed.
So it's tentatively scheduled for the third week in March. And if you, I believe I would be contacting you or including you on any invitations for that. And I think I alluded to earlier, we talked about potentially having like listening sessions to start the trail development on the farm property so that we're meeting with those user groups or the interest groups and hearing what they have to say, what their concerns are, so we can consider that as we move forward through the design process. Anybody else? Bill?
Oh, no other comment other than, are you amenable to meeting with my neighborhood association to give a report on this and updates? That's right in their wheelhouse.
On the farm?
On the farm, the trail connecting to his little park. And they of course would throw in some road improvements on 68th
68th Street.
Yeah.
I am trying to get you an update on that. I've asked this morning. But yeah, we were always happy to meet with the neighborhood.
They seem to take the information more from public officials rather than me, which is why I asked that. So
They know you so well.
I know that you want to.
We'd be more willing to come and talk about parts and help coordinate on the trip.
I'd only ask for like an
Our presentation?
hour. Yeah.
No, I attend
We'll put you
many
to sleep.
neighborhood association
That's
meetings,
okay.
so.
Yeah.
no problem.
All right.
Linda gets to talk instead of me.
All right, so now is your chance to talk. We thought we would start with giving you the opportunity. You don't have to talk if you don't want to talk. But giving you want 3 to 5 minutes to tell us what your thoughts are on the plan. I put some questions up here. What do you think of the plan overall? What'd you like about it? What did you miss? What did we get wrong? Is there something you think should be different? But I think we'll just go around and give you the opportunity to say what you'd like to say. If somebody wants to volunteer to go first, that's fine. And then after we've had the chance to do that, then we'll have more of an open discussion. We want everybody to have a chance to be heard. Is there anybody that would like to start?
Can you just go over, maybe I missed it, but can you just go over the plan? Like, did you do that part?
No, we were coming in with the assumption that everybody has reviewed the plan
Yeah.
and that we didn't want to take the time going through step by step because we thought there'd be a lot of conversation.
The people online haven't probably read it.
Sure. That's correct.
I can,
But
we can quickly go through sort of the structure of the plan.
I have read the plan,
Yeah.
I have no.
I see the
obviously.
blue,
I
I
just
see
like-
the blue tabs on your
It would be
plan.
nice to have an overview.
Do you want to do it or you?
Yeah, I can get it up on here if you wanna. It's gonna take a minute.
so you all as the county style guide, in the first presence and how we establish the font choice and color coordination. I'm stalling just not clear. We went through our extensive library of pictures to find the least worst.
All right, so here's the cover. See?
Yep.
All right. So we start off with an executive summary. We assume that not everybody's going to read all 80 some odd pages here, 95 pages. We talk a little bit about how the plan was developed, the process that we went through. I'm just going to move into the plan itself. About how the plan was developed. We talk about the visions of the plan, the goals, the things that we've talked about at all of our past meetings.
You turn to the next page. Oh, we got one after that. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we wanted to make sure that the project parameters were identified clearly in the beginning of the document. So the plan will not, big bold letters there, recommend selling the property. The plan will not remove agricultural practices at the site. And the plan will not eliminate Washington State University Extension Services at the site. But we wanted to make sure of the comments that we did here throughout the process, and again, clarifying upfront that those aren't on the table, period. And then from,
You're not the enemy, is that the message?
well, the side of the beholder, but again, we were wanting to make sure that we've heard the feedback and continue to move forward with the direction that the people have told us and our prior plans and our master plans directing us to do.
I would take that one step further and say that it's never been our intention as staff to make any drastic changes at the farm. We don't want to be the enemy, we want to be a partner. And if we can put some of the unfortunate commentary in the past and move forward as partners on this, then we can address things that that can be addressed, that help the farm partners meet their goals and objectives to the greatest extent possible, and help the park district meet the goals and objectives of serving the public to the largest extent possible. It's possible. It's done in a number of different locations throughout the country, and we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. Design is big borrow and steal in a lot of cases. So that would be our goal, is to continue to build a better partnership and put some of that bad blood in the past.
And what the plan will address should be consistent with what we've been talking about all the time. It's about the financial sustainability of the farm, increasing public access, use of the property, being consistent with the adopted master plan, and retaining the agricultural heritage of the site. So again, as we move forward, this is the lens that we're looking through as we continue to move through the rest of the project. Fine, which should be consistent with what we've been talking about since our first meeting. In this one. Sorry.
No worries. So we discussed the public process. The makeup of the steering committee, how we got to the steering committee that we have. We talked about all of the meetings that we had. There's a summary, I believe, of all the meeting notes from the meetings in the appendix. Our public engagement process, the 2 open houses, the one that we've already had, the one that we'll have in a couple of weeks here. We talked about the community leader interviews that Barney and Worth, our consor, did for us. What those questions or the themes that emerged from a lot of those interviews were similar, and we have more detailed answers that were provided, and they were provided here to you. Those are provided in the appendix as well. We have some information and themes that came about in the community survey that we did in late 2022, early 2023. We had, I think, 1,100 or so responses to that survey, and so we addressed the themes that were there. And then also in the appendix, we have the longer list of questions and answers that were received. But they were consistent with what we've been working on with this plan and preserving the site as a unique agricultural and educational asset within the community, that we need certain things like more publicity, a better marketing strategy, things like that. And then it also talked about funding sources, which is what we talked about with this plan. We cover a lot of the public meeting presentations that not necessarily that you were a part of, but we've been giving updates to the Park Advisory Board, to the Heritage Farm Advisory Team over the time. We've had a couple of, we started in 2022 with the council kind of reaffirming the goals of this project. And then we've given some updates, 2 updates to the Historic Preservation Commission. All right, and then we will we move into the context. We have some history. We talk about the people who initially inhabited the land before us, settlement of the site, when it became the Ford Farm, the things that led up to that, the things that led to the dissolution of that, how Washington State University or Washington State College came about, and the experimental station years, and how the property changed over time. And that we talk about the different, it changed hands within the county. It was initially, I think, a health department property or managed by health department, and came to Parks in 2016. We move into the current uses. A lot of this is the stuff that we addressed at the open house and we discussed. We had different presentations within people that came to speak to us. I think Christine also talked about that, and Justin O'Day talked about the current uses of the site, and as well as Zane, the different farm partners and what goes on here. We also went through and looked at the different studies and reports that have been done on the park in the past, the property in the past, from the master plan and the master plan update. What is in our park recreation and open space plan specific to Heritage Farm and how that the goals of that plan impact Heritage Farm. We went through the Metro Center report, which is one of the original documents that we gave you at the beginning of the project, and what those recommendations were that came out of that report. We also touched on the food systems report because that is a document that we recognize is important to the community, although we didn't share it at the beginning of this project. And it states that in here that it wasn't provided to you as consideration of this. I believe in the the Metro report, they had suggested updating that food systems report, but that's not something that was within the scope of this project. And I believe it states that in here. The National Registry of Historic Places, we provided the application document, which goes through a lot of the similar history on the site, and that was provided to you at the beginning of the project. And what buildings are, or what portions are, what is the term, that contributing to the registry. I think we need to note, I don't think we do in here, that it's also on the state and the county registries as well. We move into a financial analysis. This is the information that we received from our business services group, where we came up with the around $170,000 a year that comes out of the general fund specific to operating the farm. And that is separate from the extension agreement expenses, which are also shown here, although they are not part of this project for consideration. Those are things that we shared with you throughout the project for context. We also touched on WSU's extension, the WSU extension finances and budget, which also are not a part of this, but they're things that you were interested in. And Christine had provided information on that. We thought it was important to reflect that in the plan so that the public and council have another chance to realize the benefit that the extension services brings to the farm and how they leverage that agreement, the funds that they get from the county, and they turn that into $3.80 worth of benefit, more than for every dollar than what the county contributes. We go through farm advisory teams, volunteer contribution information. And I know, Sandy, I think you mentioned I've got the appendix I need to update. I have 22 information that I got from Sandy late last year is in the document here, but the appendix is still the 2021 information. So we need to update that a bit. But we go through the total number of hours and the value of that, the value of the donations that were provided for farm projects, and the amount of food that was produced and where that food typically goes. And then we have a gazillion raspberries there from 1971. Dave really helped with a site analysis here, looking at the site as 3 different zones of agricultural operations support, fallow land or slopes that are less than 15% that are unused, and then encumbered land, which are slopes and forested flats, wetlands and buffer zones and whatnot, so that we have a better understanding of the site that's there. And we also touch on the information that was provided by GlobalWise and Hovey, which were the sub-consultants that Consor brought on board to look at the regional and county-specific agricultural and economic implications of the site and the benefit it brings to the community. They also touched on the topographic constraints, which we learned about think that was the end of 2022. What was the best use of the site? What were the limitations? What are the limitations on having the entire site farmed versus having different uses throughout the site? And then the surrounding land use, so we can have a better concept of I'm sorry. What drawbacks there are for having an urban farm in the middle of the city or having a property in the middle of an urban area, an agricultural site. We touched on the different production feasibilities for different agricultural types. What are the best uses for the different types of land and the different slopes that we have, and what are the challenges with each of those? When we get into the operational alternatives, we revisit the guiding principles, which is what we discussed were what we were going to create these different alternatives and compare those to the guiding principles from the master plan update that was started in 2019. And so we rehashed those here, revisit those here. And we list all of the programmatic elements. These were the different opportunities or options that we got through our meetings, things that we had discussed, that you had brought forward in the meetings, things that we were listed in the survey questions that were received through the community leader interviews, different suggestions that we received over the course of the project. And we had provided those to you in the Build a Farm exercise and the workshop. We also touched on the cost recovery strategies, which came from the same points of contact from our discussions here, from the community surveys, and other stakeholders, and what they had suggested. This talks about the workshop and how that workshop ran and what was brought forward, which were a total of 6 alternatives from 6 different groups, 5 on the day of the main workshop, and then 1 from LULAC. And so when it talks about how we had the 6 different alternatives, and we look at them, you can look at them over here on the chart, and how they all have a lot of consistency within them. They're not exactly the same, but a lot of the same selections are made. And so we tried to whittle that down to 3 alternatives, which we talked about before, which initially we were calling same, and now we call enhanced farm. Number 2 is the NGO model, which I think we all agreed, or you all agreed in the workshop, wasn't necessarily feasible, primarily because there's not a partner that has presented itself at this time that could handle that. And then option 3, we kind of is an amalgamation of the 6 different alternatives that the individual groups brought forward. You look like you want to say something. And that alternative 3 we're calling AgriPark. We've received 1 or 2 comments that folks don't love that name. So feel free to talk about that here in a minute. We have the 2 tables. We have them over here. Look at them all blown up. Beautiful tractors and play equipment and people at marker boards. The cost recovery table. Then we get into the preferred operational approach. Our preferred approach is the AgriPark approach, number 3. We talk about why we believe that, what the limitations might be, that there is not necessarily a guarantee that all of these elements could happen, but they could or would be fully developed at any point. However, it would allow for further exploration to try to make those happen. Enhanced farm, we talk about that same enhanced farm model, and that a lot of people, not a lot, some people still have that as their preferred approach moving forward. And while we agree that it meets a lot of those guiding principles, we don't think that it meets the financial objective or necessarily increasing public access to the farm, or it's not necessarily the best option for meeting the project goals. And alternative 2, the NGO managed option, we could explore that in the future if council was interested in it. We would need to issue an RFP to seek a potential farm partner. We didn't include that in the scope of work for this project, but there's a lot of conditions that would be placed on having a potential partner come in and operate the farm. And I think as you all discussed, that that would be very difficult to find someone who would be willing to do it and would have the ability, financial backing and ability to do that long term. So that's not the one that we selected as the preferred approach. All right, and then the next steps we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but we recognize that we still have a lot of relationships that we need to build, communication lines with the existing farm partners, and that's something that through the trail process, the trail development process, we'll continue building those relationships and hopefully looking for other folks who are interested in looking into some of the options, the programmatic elements in the AgriPark model. We would be finalizing the equitable land lease program that Rocky touched on a little bit earlier. That's in for approval. Those adjusted leases. We would be just kicking some out, looking for developing a safety and security plan, like we talked about, would be probably the first step for the trail development or public access improvements portion. Listening sessions, learning what people, the public has concerns about. What farm user groups have concerns about with public access being increased. And then we will look at other revenue generation options. We talked about the Vancouver Clark County leaf litter compact posting program as a potential option. And I think half of the folks here were supportive of that, but I don't think we listed that.
It's,
It
it
is,
is on there.
it is on there. So that's
I don't have the
something.
right glasses. I just have 2 pairs, but not the third pair. I can't see that far.
That is something that we would be talking about with Pete and learning a little bit more about what the requirements would be and how that would fit on the site and work. We talked about the near-term efforts, which I talked about at the beginning a few minutes ago. I'm not going to go through that again. And then we have a world of
So if we go back up to 100,000 feet, just for a second. The reason for a document like this is for those who come after us. I can't tell you how many times I try to find something in our file system about why we did something, where we did it. And I find a single sheet of paper like that with no date on it. And I don't know what sort of public process. Yeah, but it wouldn't even have the date on it. No public process explanation, so we don't know how many times we talk to the public. And a lot of people complain about documents like this because they sit on a shelf and collect dust, but when we're all gone and somebody says, why did they do what they did? Hopefully somebody can put their hands on this document because we put it in the right spot.
And
A
did you
couple
tell
spots.
anybody where that spot went?
But if there's no document, there's no hope of finding that document. And so I just, as a planner, like to have that sort of, this is why we did this. This is, how we did it. And this is what the outcome was. So just sort of big picture when we're talking about the essence of a planning document. So.
Okay, so I think we can go back to the part where you guys have a chance to give us your thoughts, give your committee members your thoughts, and then we can have more of an open discussion if that works for you, or if you guys don't want to do that, just have an open discussion.
Good work, Lindy.
Thank you for summarizing.
Okay.
You guys. Well, what I see, and I know you guys are gonna say, well, but everything is so interrelated. Everything you're doing there is related. The farm's related to the park, it's related to the development, it's related to the businesses on all sides, it's related to the community. it is so interconnected that we know we're gonna miss some people. It's just gonna happen. And I have no idea, God's green earth, why we can't get an overflow crowd at the meetings about this stuff. It just upsets me like crazy. It must upset you too. But it's so important to the community. It's so important to our heritage. And we can do terrific stuff on this place. On my North Dakota trip this year, I go to these little tiny communities that have a population smaller than some of our high schools, for heaven's sakes. They can turn out outrageously successful plans with nothing, you know, paper files. If they've got two people in the group with a cell phone, they think they're really doing something, but they can get it together. And I don't know, and I asked and I talked to them, what do you do that's different than what we do? You know, we go online, we send out invitations, we connect up with the neighborhood associations, the business community, newspapers, we do all this stuff, and we still can't get public participation in public projects. Well, we just talk to our neighbors, and I'm like, well, there you go. As a neighborhood leader, I can tell you, you can't get people to talk to their neighbors. They'll go online and they'll communicate with God only knows who on Nextdoor and complain about everything, but they don't talk to their neighbors. I would really like to see that January 24th open house well attended, and I will do what I can in my neighborhood to get people off their fannies and get them out there, because this represents such a small percentage of the people that are going to benefit from it. And I just, that's my whole thing. It's such a puzzle. It's like a Rubik's Cube. You can get one side of it just about right, and you think you've got all the angles handled. You know, we don't even talk about the cemetery anymore. That'll be my next year thing. Just kind of heads up. But I think much of our problem here stems from lack of understanding in exactly what the farm is about. What it has been about is a big thing, but it's not the prior thing. The priority is going forward, how can we get people to put value on it? How can we teach young people how to do stuff? Don't even have to bring the manure into your own yard. You can go out here into 78th Street, and there's this outfit, and they're going to show you how to do all this stuff. I mean, it's just so frustrating. Such a valuable resource, and I just want us all to work really hard to try to get a ton of people out there for you on the 24th.
Well, and can I say, in terms of public engagement, I understand your frustration. We talked about it at Minnehaha. We did have pretty good turnout at our first open house for Heritage Farm. We did have 1,100 responses to the
great.
survey. And I think that's important to acknowledge. That's more than the master plan had. And when I first started here, we had an open house for Curtin Creek that I think one person attended online. And that was I was an employee who happened to live in the area. So, you know, we've been working in our planning group and with our communication staff to try to beef up what we've been doing. Specific to this, we'll have signs that are out within a 2-mile radius of the property. We'll have mailers that go out. We have news releases. We have social media posts. I have the stakeholders list. There's about 350 people or so that I'm emailing at this point, letting them know. I think you probably all received an invitation that went out to a lot more than just the people in this room.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just still.
So we are making an effort, and we're also trying to do a little bit more at our open houses too. So people, when they come, if they have a decent experience, hopefully they'll come to another one. So we're having snacks, we're having an activity table, so your kid can come and they can be over here and do some puzzles or play some games or whatnot while you wander around and talk to us and ask us all your hard questions. So
Public participation isn't unique to this property or this project.
Oh, exactly. That's the whole thing. Oh, absolutely.
So it is a constant struggle. And the fact that we get almost 50 people showing up to the second Minnehaha neighborhood park open house is a testament to all the things that Lindy has been doing to sort of double down on the commitment to reach out to the public. Some of it's successful, some of it's not. But we're committed to not only reaching out to the obvious members of our public, but all members of the public. To the extent that we've done lots of translation work that we're not
Yes,
required.
I
to
saw
do.
that. That's pretty impressive.
We will be translating the executive summary of this plan into at least three languages. And with the offer to translate the whole document, if somebody wants the whole document translated, we just can't afford to have
Absolutely.
the whole thing translated for no
David,
request.
do you have Marilyn McCall send these notifications out to all the neighborhood leaders?
So we've sent this, Marilyn McCall receives all the same notifications and then she takes care of all of that notification. I notify, if I'm working within a neighborhood, then I'll notify the folks, the neighborhood association members that I've been working with, like Minnehaha, that are within that neighborhood. And Minnehaha is not even in West Hazeldale, but I still
Yeah.
keep you in track because you're with us. But we also, just so you know, we've been making like an effort to reach out to underrepresented groups and sending emails, making phone calls, and we don't get a lot of response, but we are definitely trying to make an effort to do that, having meetings, and there's a lot more that we need to do to kind of integrate ourselves with those folks, and integrate is probably a really terrible word, but to try to invite people to participate more. And this is
Yes,
just the tip
correct.
of the iceberg.
I was surprised that the tribe did not step up.
The tribe did consider, they did participate in a community interview. We will be providing this plan to them to review the draft plan. And I met with the tribal, not a tribal member, but a person who works for the tribe, and that person indicated to me that there's all these different organizations that reach out to the tribe and ask them to participate in this board and that board and to do this and do that, and they don't have enough people and staffing to serve their
The tribe's
people,
there, yeah.
let alone to participate in our meetings. And so we understand that, and we appreciate anything they do to participate. Yeah.
So I wrote up some notes that I think are probably like the most important, at least they're the substantive parts for me. Farm sustainability and financial sustainability was the very top thing that we were told to address on this committee. And I think in this plan, and it's repeated, in the confines of the master plan and public access was sort of the second one. And despite this being the main goal of the committee and the plan, the financial analysis that's in this is so incredibly bare bones. It is honestly laughably bare bones. And I understand the limitations, but it's really challenging to have that be our goal and have what's shown be a condensed 5-year budget that has pretty big, broad stroke categories. And then not only that, it really confusingly includes all of these costs related to WSU extension, which is a contract that's completely separate and totally independent of the Heritage Farm. And I know it says in there down somewhere, this is separate, but the way that it's shown, anybody who looks at that is going to be like, well, look how much money they're taking. It does a total disservice to what we're trying to do here. I don't think it's a bad idea to include somewhere in the written comments or the written text in there. This is a contract that we have with WSU Extension. This is going to remain. If you want to put the total amount in, fine. But the way, if you move up on the screen on page 23, you are not doing anybody any services the way that it's shown. The way that this plan addresses financial sustainability is that it changes the land designation. But I said that in one sentence, and it's not really talked about in here.
But it doesn't change the land designation.
Well, excuse me.
The zoning won't change.
It turns it
It's a lot of
into
money.
a park. So that's fine. But that is, it's like, it said sort of in one sentence, kind of, but it's not really directly said. It's, but that's the, like, that is the thing. I just solved the whole plan for you, changed the color of the money. And I get that you need a plan. I totally get that. I also work for government. I understand. But it's then danced around so much that I think you completely missed the point of that.
Oh, I don't think we missed the point at all. It's buried.
Well, it's
Well,
then, it's.
I get what you're saying, Zora, is that this plan is not giving concrete ways of walking the ladder of sustainability. What it is providing is a bunch of, I'm on this food train, so I apologize, crumbs in regards to taking actions in the future that we can investigate to do to change some of those things. And so it isn't robust, and I agree with that. But it wasn't intended to provide all those solutions. It was, and I think through our discussions a long time ago, I would call us coming to the conclusion that this property and all the examples that we looked at across the nation were heavily supported. And that was a realization of that we weren't going to have sustainability and it's financially stable upon itself based off of the work product because of all these competing needs that it's trying to meet. And so as such, I think that was, and maybe that's in the completion of the document, we didn't get that right. Communicating is that, gosh golly, we can't find a way to make this self-sufficient. We found ways to bring in more funds and do things, business practices to make it better. Part of that's depending upon other funds to come in for like a coordinator to market things and bring programming in or to write grants to get other things and other partnerships. So that's good feedback and we'll continue with it. I agree that having both those numbers out there is conflicting. And I think, as we discussed earlier on, is that our accounting structure was set that was all in one bucket of money and we're trying to pull it out. This feedback that we're getting, we'll look at and say, well, do we just erase everything that's on the left and the pages after that talk about the contributions and we just talk about it and maybe in a paragraph we talk about, we've got this cost center that included lots of things. We pulled out the things that are related to farm operation. And maybe that's a simpler approach to get back to the concerns that were raised earlier when we were trying to walk through down to, we're trying to get it to where we're talking about the 170,000 number, and that's what we're focusing on. And unfortunately, when we're doing that filtration, we get stuck at looking at those other numbers. And that is a human nature issue that we'll look back and try to see if we can do that better, where maybe we have an appendix that has all the numbers. And it's an appendix, it's not page 23.
I'm not done yet.
No, this is good.
So the plan does not define the proposed alternative. It does not define what an agri park is. It doesn't even really say what you're talking about with an agri park. It's discussed a lot. I've got all the pages, but it's not defined anywhere. There's these really blurry pages back here that are unreadable that have definitions of all the programmatic elements, but it's not in this category of agri park. So I don't really know what alternative you guys are proposing because it doesn't say it anywhere. Other than calling it an agri park and being extremely general descriptions of what that is. And I think I really appreciate and value the opportunity to participate in this committee. My concern from the outset was that we were duplicating and triplicating and quadruplicating things that had already been done. And I said that in like meeting 2, saying after we looked at some of the existing plans, and I get it, again, I got you, we need a plan. But it feels like we've sort of taken the step back and made existing existing plans even more general to the point of like, really what this plan is saying is we're gonna build some trails and, but those were already in development, obviously. We're gonna change the color of the money. And there's other cool ideas and we're gonna put all the cool ideas here and maybe those will make money. They probably won't, but that's fine. But I wish that we'd had more chance to communicate and discuss these alternatives, these plans. We all put together these sort of alternatives, and then they went into this vacuum, and we had no chance to even talk about what happened with them. And I mean, Lindy, I found 2 errors in just our groups, which didn't really give me confidence that what we had said was sort of taken into account. But it doesn't really matter anyways, because the whole point of it is we're just changing the color of the money and building trails. I just want you to say that, like just say that that's what we're doing in this plan. We're going to change how it's done. And I am saying none of this to say anything bad about this process or like what you've done, Lindy. I know writing this stuff is so hard. You get so into it and it's really challenging. So it's not a criticism about that part of it. I feel like, I guess the takeaway is the financials have to be more outlined and please define what it is that we're agreeing to or that the council's agreeing to. I would mention a conservation easement.
The definition is definitely lacking, especially if you can't read the definition of agri park is definitely lacking, especially if you can't read the appendix. We started shoving things into the appendix to try and make the document a link that somebody might actually read. And then we decided to do an executive session. We can be very much more direct with the definition of agri park by defining the elements that are represented in the infographic as part of the preferred alternative. So we pull those specific definitions forward. That's a great suggestion. We can be more direct about changing the color of money. To me, this is just step one in building a sustainable piece of property, a sustainable farm, a sustainable operation. At some point, we have to move on beyond planning. This is the as a site designer, not a planner. It's taken me a long time to get comfortable with spending the time doing this because I know what we need to do. I'm Eddie told us. I'm just arrogant enough to think that I should make all those decisions. But we do need to know what the public says. We do need to convene the experts. We do need to do those things. But if we wrote it down, every single solitary thing, and we defined every single solitary thing, this becomes something that nobody will ever pick up.
But you understand that.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want that either, but you have to at least explain.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We do need to do a better job of reducing the ambiguity in certain areas. But we also need to balance the time that we have to do things and shift to having the conversations about the specific things. Let's get into developing the things more clearly and put this aside as we did that. And now let's actually start working on some of these things. And so that's the sort of balancing point. When's the planning done and when's the doing start? I don't want to plan just to plan. I'm going to do at some point.
Yeah, so I would say, so everything that Zora said, I completely agree with. And I understand what you're saying as far as, like we already know what we want to do, and so let's just move forward. But it doesn't say that in here, right? And so for instance, if it's just about changing the money, because I'm thinking about like, so what is the difference between an agri-park and just keeping it as is? Because as is, master plan already says to have a trail. the master plan, are, you know, so it's like, so I'm just wondering, if it's just changing the money, and by changing the money, we're able to do more, right? We're able to then put a coordinator in, we're able to do those enhancements that we already have at the farm that we're not doing. So if it's just that, great, right? I mean, and all those other things you're saying, so and all those other things that we wish for, that we'd like to be able to do, that could make the farm more accessible. But I'm also saying too, it's just like, then let's just say that, what that is. I agree as far as just adding in the financial analysis. The other piece is like, what is the value that not only the county is bringing, but the other stakeholders are bringing? So if we're going to leave in this line item, I agree too, of just like, it's a distraction. And you all know how I feel about those added lines with WCU, so we don't need to go into that. But like, if we're really truly going to add in more detail, we should add in the detail around the financial value of every stakeholder that is bringing to the farm. All of the things that Sandy collects every year, we need to be able to have that in here as a financial value. If that's a financial analysis, we need to be able to say, here are all of the things that we're bringing to the farm. If none of these things were here, we wouldn't have all of these wonderful programs.
Is there more that you have than what you've provided?
Yes and no. I mean, I have a deeper dive, a little bit that talks a little bit more about the value to the community. I just gave you hard numbers. But there's in their reports, there's a lot of times conversations about the impacts in the community, which I think is far reaching out beyond the farm, of what impacts of what goes on at the farm affects people in our community, how it saves them money, how it helps farmers increase their productivity and their economic impact on the community. So there's those kinds of things that are not hard numbers, but they're more impacts. That's what I could think of.
And I think we've also not ever asked it.
Right.
We've never asked that question of like, what is the value that you bring? In the sense of like being able to say the staffing, but you do.
I do,
Yes, all of that. Like,
right, yeah.
How much staff is contributing to this farm every year?
And so that's on a larger thing that doesn't go. I mean, I generalize to keep that at one page, usually in the summary when we talk about some of those impacts. But there is a larger spreadsheet that
Can
goes into that.
you provide that larger?
I can even provide you with their individual summaries.
Yeah,
if you want.
that'd be great.
Every one of them has.
Again, it can do a couple different things for us. So from dollars and cents or that section, but also we can change the formatting and we can have those quotes, those little, like little moments of sermon, I like to call them. You know, there's just little testimonials throughout that. There'll be a nugget in that. There's going to be a nugget as public comment. There's some those nuggets that can get home. I think some of those bigger issues that aren't about it costs us $1 to operate it. We don't have $1 in revenue. And that, so.
But sometimes it doesn't come down to dollars. I mean, it is about financials, but it isn't always about dollars and cents. It's about the impact it has on the community and how it makes it a healthier community, or a community that works together, or a community that supports each other. And so what happens on the farm that creates that in pockets in our community? And those are really hard to measure and hard to explain, but yet it's there.
That's the problem with being able to put together a spreadsheet and having actual numbers versus the things that are harder to quantify. It's easy to put a table together, right? And people tend to look at tables and section titles. And so when I was working on formatting this with Lindy, I purposely pulled some things out and made them in that big blue bold text, and so they were eye-catching. Unfortunately, the tables are also eye-catching. So there may be a way to deal with that. And if there are some larger points that the steering committee feels we should make, highlight them, and we'll find a way to pull them out like we did with the items that I was trying to capture. This is the definition of sustainability in my mind. And if we have to wordsmith some of that stuff, then we wordsmith it. Because at the end of the day, most people are gonna read the executive summary.
What they might well do, but what Sandy and Christine are talking about is exactly why the farm has value. It has value because it builds people. It builds people who are self-sustaining. And, you know, you don't have to be Elon Musk to be able to figure that out. And I think that is a huge part of it that's missing. I know it would make it a bigger document, I get that, but that's why we have search functions. We can find what we need, but the kids that used to come to the farm when my kids were in school here and visited the farm, that was the biggest thing. And it was like months and months and months. I had all of the seeds growing on my counter. And I mean, it was a little fiddly, but the point was both of my kids grow their own food. My son grows his own bacteria to feed some bugs that Lord only knows what they do. But it's all because they got the concept of you start with this little tiny thing and you take care of it and you make it grow and it becomes something that's going to help you down the road. I think that's really important stuff. I think it's worth pages and pages of charts.
So
Better.
I think that,
Anybody would read it.
yeah, that's the
disagree.
thing.
You're still gonna read it. I mean, it's optimistic to think
Yeah,
that
you're
you
right,
will.
Teresa.
It
Yeah.
means nothing to people. I'm sorry.
If we
People
can,
that experience it.
if we can boil it down to 500 words, somebody will read it, right? What,
Mhm.
write a pledge of allegiance to Heritage
Yeah.
Farm,
I like that.
you know? But see, Lindy and I worked on this together, writing this, and we're trying to capture what you've said and what's in your brain and what you feel. But we need you to help us cross the goal line when it comes to telling us what you feel and what you want people to know about Heritage Farm and why you think it's worth 5 times what we spend on it. Right? Because
Did
it
we
is
do a
worth,
video?
it is worth, it needs to go in this document and the council needs to see.
We have
it.
an oral report.
I think the point is less though, like, that's great, having that data and, or, I don't know, anecdotal, whatever, it's great, we all know it's great. That's fine, but I'm actually talking about these hard numbers, which $1 million over 5 years to the county is like a fleck of whatever. It is so little, but the way that it's presented makes it look like Miss Moneybags over here is just taking all of it. And poor county is left over here to squeak by on $167,000. So that's just like how it's presented, but also then, I mean, this huge bucket of staffing, which
And-
like,
And part of that is we have an internal audience, and when I was given this project, I was told the farm costs us $700 to $1 million a year. Why? Figure it out. And what I found is that there was a commingling of different programs that are being called the farm that aren't the farm. They're
call that
extension
out.
services,
like.
and
call
that's
that out. I
what
think
we
it's
were.
fair to say, these are the expenses for operating the farm. This is what the county's trying to save. Next table, we also have this other contract with WSU Extension. That's not going anywhere. We can house them in the public, whatever building at the county, and it's gonna cost like 5 times as much. I promise you. Or we could just keep them here in this podunk building that.
Well, that's why they moved them to every case.
Zora, I take offense to that statement.
We're done. We'll show you a podunk building.
State of art HVAC that was installed in 2011.
The room where when the air compressor kicks on in the shop, you can smell it in the office.
I put duct tape over my window today, right there.
Yeah. And I just,
Stop the
I get
breeze.
you're saying.
I'm
I
just
smell
trying to say
diesel
that,
fumes
like,
every time someone drives by.
I
haven't
get,
Never had that at the farm when I was.
I think what Rocky was that the internal audience is the most important aspect of it in terms of how it was written and why, and that's sort of unfortunate as it goes out to the public. But
But we have.
But
Yeah,
saying
it does
it-
seem
This
like
is
there's
good
a secret
feedback.
audience in here, or there's
There-
a certain
there is.
audience that nobody else really knows. I mean, that you know who it is, but then when everyone's reading it, it doesn't translate.
No,
It doesn't
that's-
translate.
this
This
is
is what you're
feedback.
saying is exactly, and I'll just say this is the way that, because Rocky gets to hear me yell and rant, because that's what I do. And then he takes that, what you're saying is the same thing I always say, but that doesn't translate into something that keeps, if we word it that way, we don't have jobs anymore. And so it's written, you've got some good points as to how it could be, we could separate and maybe change, condense something in big bold print that would
We're,
emphasize.
we're trying to make, and we did a really good job, this document is agreeing with you.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that this site has a lot of value. There is a lot of impact to the community, and here's a way to approach that and continue to work on it moving forward. And sustainability to me is not a one and done as well. It is an ongoing process as well. So I think that's elements in here maybe too steep in the future in the country. So concrete numbers, anecdotal elements. We're not talking about the whole other value. This is all good feedback for us as we continue to noodle on it and as we prepare for our next public meeting. And then after we gather all that information, coming up at that time.
And if you have 500 words in your brain, write it down. You know, why Heritage Farm, right? Because
What audience are we writing that for? Is it gonna be the internal audience or the people that Isla and I have to deal with?
I think it would be, I think it would have to walk the thin line that we're trying to walk, right?
Well, we have very few people that show up to meetings because when they show up to meetings, they're showing a document that nobody understands. And that's why I like to have people come to our association meeting to explain those, but I mean, that's the dichotomy I see here is that you guys are writing a report for the counselors. Well, we're trying to generate interest in our neighborhoods, and they're not making heads or tails of this report. I mean, when I go, I've got another meeting this month where I was gonna talk about this. If I showed them up on the Zoom screen to report, they'd, okay, what does that mean? I mean, that's kind of where I'm stuck at, is that I've got to translate all that and give it to my neighborhood, to
Yeah.
show some interest, to get them to the meetings. And they're not really, they show no interest because they don't understand any of what's going on. I mean, nobody in my neighborhood is going to be interested in the finances. They're going to be interested in, what is,
What does this
what
really?
what do they get from it? Well, I mean, walking trails, great. Link to Hazelell Park, wonderful. You know, the community gardens and all that is gonna be great, but the financial, end of it, not the, it's important, but for the people that I represent, it's not quite as important as it is to the council. So that those 500 words, who are we trying to convince with 500 words? Because I could probably work on something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
what would happen? What would,
Yourself, write it.
what would happen? What would happen?
I'm already
would
under fire
happen?
from another level.
I just want us to check in about everyone being able to get a chance to be able to speak, and I'm not sure if everyone has.
I was just gonna say, I was kind of going backwards to what Zora first said about, there's no definition of agri-park. And I think that would be something that we can make it simple, you know?
Yes, that would have to be
You know,
included in
a
the
couple
500 words.
lines, not, because I went through it and looked, you know, and I, of course, I wasn't involved in it, but and you can go back to the appendix and read, but again, most users are not, people reading that are not going to do that. I'm on my HOA board, they don't do nothing unless you spoon feed it to them, you really have to. So maybe just something, a section on, this is what agri-park, how we envision it, it's fluid, we could add more things to it, whatever, something like that.
No, that's
it's an excellent point, and we need to work on the sort of the definition of agri-park and this preferred alternative approach. Pull those definitions forward for the elements that we're gonna focus on in that version of Heritage Farm moving forward. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is, this is, again, the political winds can change. And somebody could come back and
Just
say,
yesterday.
somebody could come back and say, what are you guys picking on Heritage
I
Farm?
missed something.
Like, we could have new counselors and all of a sudden it'd be like, why did you do this? It could get worse, it could get better, it could get worse again. Regardless of what you think worse and better are. And so this is a very fluid document. And I felt like we did a pretty decent job of saying, none of the alternatives that we've put together are entirely off the table because things change. Right? Somebody could come in tomorrow and say, I'm the National Farmer Association X, and I've got a $76 million endowment, and I want to run Heritage Farm. It's like, oh, an NGO that can do it, right? We just don't.
Welcome, partner.
Yeah, we just don't have that.
We make it difficult to become partners always.
Yeah. So
I think that Mark has left. Is there anybody else that has an opportunity? Sandy, you all?
Yeah, I guess, I agree with both what Christine and Zora have talked about, and I'm not gonna go with the financials. But the term agri-park, and you had already alluded to the fact that a lot of people don't like that idea, and I think we've heard a lot about it not being a park, that it's a farm, and it has a history of doing farming and agriculture and food access. And so, as Christine had said, is like, if we're looking at maintaining that kind of thing, why do we have to call it an agri-park unless it's going to be a park? And I saw a lot of comments in some of the talking about the agri-park, about recreation opportunities, concepts for a community park, recreation improvements, things like that. And so those are just intertwined with the whole idea of making it an agri-park and supporting farming as well, and farming concepts or agricultural concepts. And so is there a way that we can still follow this path? Because I think the work has been done really well, but follow the path to keep the history of it being agriculturally focused, but also having public access. And I know that we want to increase public access, but the trails will do that. But there's lots of other things that can improve public access that are already being done, but could be expanded and marketed even better. So the tours that we have, bringing youth groups to the farm, harvest activities or other kinds of events and activities that go on at the farm that bring people to the farm and talk about the heritage and about agriculture and food access and healthy living, and also having some activity with the trails and so on. But I just felt like, one, the agri-park I disagree with, and Rob, I think, sent his comments in and said there's a concern about people calling it a park and turning it into a park. And agri-park kind of has a merge of the two, but it still emphasizes park. And then having some of the comments, like I already said, the safe recreation opportunities, a community park, those kinds of words, it's not defined. Again, back to the definition of what an agri-park is. And is an agri-park something that you're using internally, or is that going to be changed to be called the Heritage Agri-Park? Or what does that mean? You know, where does that fit in that conversation? Is it going to stay the Heritage Farm? And then we're going to have these agri-park pieces to it. So I think that's part of that definition again, around where do those things fall? And I think if the community starts looking at this, they're going to pick up on those park-like concepts that are in there. And so what does that mean for the Heritage Farm? A couple of questions I had is that when this sustainability plan goes into effect, it talks about going into the Metropolitan District for Community Park. I'm assuming that goes into parks. Will it then fall under the Parks Board? Will there still be a Heritage Farm Advisory Board that will work with things that are going on there and some of the activities that are going on? So how does that fall?
Sure. So it currently falls under the portfolio of the Heritage, of the Parks Advisory Board. And with our short capital plan, the Heritage Farm Advisory Team is been approved as a thing. There's a list of representatives waiting for appointment. It's not occurred
A
yet.
year later. Patience, I know.
Not part the seas, but so there officially there's never been a board for the farm. There was an advisory team. Now there was a creation of that, but it was never official from our records to do that. So the way that we have an advisory team, that's still the intent of doing it. The name, to be honest, is the Port Farm. The Heritage Farm implies that it was like one of those, those little signs you get on your Heritage Farms. It's been a farm, it's Bob's uncle's farm, sort of thing. So the official name, of course, is 78th Street Heritage Farm, but no one ever calls it. And
Yeah,
so,
because it's really,
but that's its official name. So any renaming of it would be a council item that would go through HVAC for a summary, through Parks Advisory Board. There's no intention or plans. I think what we're trying to describe is its use by the agri park, and that focusing on many of the examples across the nation that we've looked at have an agricultural production element, an educational agricultural element, interpretation, and passive recreational programming that brings in. And I think from the master plan and sort of the things that have been discussed here, it's talking about ways to get from that passive use, someone driving by, making it attractive to come in there and experience it without taking a class, being part of a program, but just to be there and experience the landscape from its perspective as an active agricultural farm. It's in like different phases throughout the season. Getting up on that block, seeing the vistas, seeing that different perspective. Everyone in this room has been up on the hill. It's different up there than it is on 78th Street or at any of the other parts there on the flip side. So again, having that, those are the things that we're trying to figure out is how do we implement the master plan for those passive recreations. It's not about having a go-kart rink or some sort of real active elements. Now, does that mean that there's some sort of farm-related play stuff that goes in there? I don't know, maybe in the future. But right now, we're just looking at those things that are in the master plan, which is essentially trying to create how to get people in beyond the gate and see the property without impacting those other operations. And it's a tough balancing act. We've got our work ahead of us as we do move forward. And this is just that thing is, we all came into this with, okay, we had a master plan update, didn't go so well. There was some conflict. And this was the strategy to try to bridge that gap, to continue to move forward that adopted master plan and make sure that we're hearing people right. And we're hearing that we are, and that we need to make some improvements. That's what I'm hearing today. And so now it's just a matter of getting that to where we can move it forward. And it's going to be super fun and frustrating because that's what it always is like as we continue to move things. Any change of the property as changing the code on the door to building a parking lot somewhere, or the trail, it's gonna create feelings on all sides in regards to doing that. And that continues to be our mantra for this is how do we balance all those conflicting things of increasing public access, use, making it the special place that everyone has communicated it is beyond that first ripple or two out. And how do we get the next generation who's not part of Future Farmers of America or 4-H to have those same experiences?
There is a publication that I just ran into in Barnes Noble Bookstores that talks about the hiking trails of Vancouver, which Heritage Farm is included on. I don't know whether you've seen that or not, or whether you were part
Is
of
it a
that.
little book like this?
It's a little book like
What's
that.
it called, Hike There?
Yeah, something like that.
I know.
But I went to the Heritage Farm section and basically said, unless you know somebody or you are a special person, you can't really get in here. But there is a hiking trail. I mean, that's publications
there,
like that,
publications
that's how you
telling you,
get
yeah.
the information out, at least to a certain
Goes my
extent. There's ways to do it that I don't think we've really discussed yet, but it can be done.
I'm glad they're
And-
publicizing
And,
semi-open thing.
I just did a stupid Google search on agri-parks, and they do exist. They are a thing. It would be simple to go in and find out what defines an agri-park and doesn't meet what it is we're doing here as to whether agri-park is a proper term or if it's just, I mean, to some people, it just sounds like a silly name, but I
Well,
mean,
that's
there's
why
ways
it's
to approach it. There's ways to approach it where we can, look at it and possibly define it. So that
And
we
it
have
also
that.
seems to be more of an internal
Yeah,
term
Yeah.
as opposed to an external
Yeah,
term.
and
but
the
it
technical
needs
term
to
for
be
the
just-
property would be, if it,
Public facility.
right now it's a public facility, but if we were to blend the funding and generate NPD funds, it would be a community park, would be its classification, but it would be defined as the Heritage Farm. And if the term agricultural park is there, because what we're trying to do is to continue to communicate that the main focus, most of the acreage there is focused on what you see on that picture is.
Sure.
And then,
but it should be representative of actually what it is. And you need to look at it from the point of view, it doesn't meet what other agri-parks that exist do. And as you said before, the name of this facility has changed over the years, depending on its use. It's no longer the pork farm, although most residents
Still call it the
still
forefront.
call it the pork farm. So,
The economy hasn't been great. Let me ask just one question. The whole thing about ag, but I love the concept. It just sounds kind of cool to me, but I thought in my stupid head that somewhere when I was doing research on this across the country, somehow an agri-park had some sort of a permanent setting that we don't get easily. Did you pick up anything that,
permanence in regards
well,
to
as
people living there
Well,
or,
it seemed to, in the communities that they had something called an agri-park, there seemed to be a sense of, well, that's not going anywhere, nobody can touch it, but maybe that is just their, their interpretation, maybe it was. But you got nothing when you were looking around at other agri-parks that somehow that classification would help us at all in keeping the park or the farm in place?
well, I think it comes back again to, we've got a master plan, we got all those
Oh,
plans,
yeah.
and we're looking to get that covenant that's gonna reassure the covenants. And I think the agri park, there's many different iterations of that, but a majority of them, I mean, there's some agri parks like in Lake Oswego, where
Yeah.
they have a portion of the old farm
Sure,
has a different entrance, it has a soccer field, it has a dog park, it has a playground.
yeah.
It's apart from that. That's not what we're looking to do here, and the master plan would say that. But then you go across the way, they have the fields, they have the house, they have the programming, all the school, well, they actually have a recreation programs or house that
Community garden.
they have community gardens, they have leases there. And then when we looked at others around the nation, there was iterations of that where they had, some of them had sort of the master gardener program, community gardens, and that was what it was focused on. Others had trails and other open spaces and a different landscape. It just depends on its size and its setting in those different communities. There was the one out of Detroit that was an extension services and something else. I think that came through the WSU review. There was a one in New York City, what dates back in the 1600s, that had all that, the farming and those practices that were, I remember it was bisected by a freeway or something like that, that used to have connection to the Bronx or Brooklyn, anyways. So I mean, there's all these different ways and different funding streams they get to that element. And I think and that's where we want to come to the definition, but it's about getting people into nature and into the farming, seeing the farming activities. So that's the agri-park. And how do you get people in there
Public
to do that?
access, yeah.
And is that through a hike? Maybe the part of it is a community garden. For another portion, is it having the different programs that we run there to WSU? Yeah, I mean, all those are petals of the flower, you know, to finally get more and more people. Is it just having a counter there? So every time the gates open, we get a counter. So now we have a real data, how many people are on the trail, in the farm, in the admin building. You know, there's tools to continue to communicate that we are increasing the, you know, Christine every quarter sends out this little newsletter, and on the side there it's number of tours, people, emails, posts, views. I mean, she has that sort of thing there to communicate. So if she's got some data that does it, and we on the park side don't have as much of that from people just getting that bling like you're going into a store. And that's, I think, those are those other things that continue to show number of people, another way of showing how we're getting in there. And I think that's those perceptions that it's closed off, it's only for invited guests, is one of those hurdles that we're trying to address through this process. And the perception that it costs $1 million a year to run the farm. And so those are the two big hurdles. It's already heading down on the head. We have a master plan, we have a plan moving forward, and we're not looking to change a lot of things. I think what we're trying to do is come up with other ideas that hopefully help us implement that master plan better and provide different revenues to realize some of the other things that have come up. That isn't part of the master plan, but is still part of the master plan conceptually.
Just like,
Just 1 second. I just want to acknowledge we're a little over 15 minutes over our meeting time, and so we can continue on conversation, but if anybody feels like they have to leave, I don't want you to feel like you're obligated to stay.
Just really fast, I just want to clarify, when I say define agri-park, I didn't mean like generally define agri-park. I meant we've chosen this alternative, and that alternative includes X, Y, Z elements. So I just wanted to say that, because
No,
it was much more specific than, I mean, I think there's value in that, but then.
And I heard it both ways. So we had more of a general concept, what is an agri-park and what does that mean on our site? So I heard it both ways. So thanks. Well,
Matt,
4 minutes?
Matt, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good.
Don't let Matt go.
I just have one general question, if we have the time. When you talk about access and increased access, is there like goal for access, or what's your success for access now versus 5 years from now? And what's your thought about, I mean, if you have X access this year, do you expect 10% increased access, and do we need to improve things? I don't know, I'm curious about quantifying access and what that means. And you might not have an answer, that's fine.
I think that
It didn't look like that. Okay.
that's been one of the bigger challenges in this whole exercise is what does sustainability mean? I didn't like the term business plan, which is what the council wanted, because it isn't a business. And the word sustainability also creates some ambiguity. But the whole public access and financial sustainability thing is hard to quantify. I'll be candid. It's taking the spotlight off of the property. If we can move it from general fund to something else, then we're one layer removed from council, right? And we can continue to do the things that we do at the snail's pace, where sometimes, you know, in the world of public meetings, it's, you know, cut off your hand to make a point, right? We just don't move that. We can't make a decision and do it. And sometimes in a public meeting, somebody says, just do this. So for me, it's just doing better at what we're currently doing, and being responsive to people who give us direction when they give us direction. And to me, just finding a way to get more people aware of the farm, whether that's through informal use, like people who go there to walk their dog, or go there to walk their kid in their stroller, or people who come and participate in programs. That's increased public access. And again, we should define that. We should do a better job of defining that in the confines of this plan. But we can't just say another 5,000 people a year.
But you
Yeah,
don't
just
do it
not-
for your
that- that-
parks. I
Can't put a
mean,
number to it.
No, and I
you
think for
want
me,
access to your regular parks too, and you probably don't think that way for the parks. And so does that carry over to the farm as well? Or,
Well,
you
but
know,
we do think of that. We think, but we don't, we base it off of what current usage is as compared to what it used to be. And so this kind of has to get done before you can really figure out
Right.
what the value to the community is going to be based on usage. Is that
yeah,
correct?
so on the park side here, we don't have counters on all of our properties. Other places have been, we do, and that utilization, the carrying capacity are all things that we're thinking about. Our model for parks here is a level of service, which is number of developed acres, number of acres per 1,000 or 10,000 residents within the service delivery. And in a regional park, if we have another ratio there. So that's kind of how we're thinking of it. What I think it would be success is if we have people experiencing this property and starting to engage in programming there that aren't historically engaged. People who aren't using it now, have no intention of using it, are now utilizing that property in whatever format. And so if that's just to take a walk to relieve a little bit of stress, work off that extra turkey that I had, or to go, what is going on here from that experience, and then leads to discussion, leads to those little kernels that then populates all those things. And I think having that passive elements and the other programming, the stuff that you guys have already started, the tours, talking about the history, having those sort of formalize that word of mouth getting out. There's that combination of word of mouth and the publication sort of thing that to get that element. They only have so much parking space and so much programming space. And so, their success for me is that we have to start thinking about how do we increase the carrying capacity to meet that extra utilization while not interfering with the carrots being grown, the experimental mushrooms, or
mushrooms.
yeah, man, they're
Are we
experimental.
still in a public meeting?
Experimental.
Like,
Okay. Yeah, that's all right. Let's just run through, I have a couple more slides here, just real quick. Just some information on the open house. It's January 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. You're cordially invited. It will be in the commons area, which is the cafeteria area at Minnehaha Elementary School. We had a couple of open houses there before, and they've been pretty successful. There'll be signage on site. I'm not going to go through everything here because I've already kind of touched on it, but just to let you know, we will be going through introductions. We'll introduce you. We'll have plan development update. We'll talk about the survey because we had the survey at the time of the last open house, and here we'll present the results of that and discuss the community leader interviews that occurred after that. We'll review the plan. We'll talk about how folks can provide feedback, the comment period, those next steps, and then we'll also have a Q&A session. If you will be attending, if you would let me know that you'll be there, just so we I know that you're there and not call you out because you're not there, waiting for you to respond. We will have the comment period that I talked about earlier, and these 2 dates, the Park Advisory Board and the council meeting, we'll let you know as far in advance as we can that those meetings are going to occur in case you want to participate. Those are, again, online and in person, so it's up to you if you want to attend and how you want to attend. And these are just extra slides I had. That's all I have.
And Lindy, can you make, one of the things that as a neighborhood person, I'm always trying to tell my people about things that are going on. Between Bill and I, there's 35,000 people just in the neighborhood, just outrageous amount of people. But we never know what's happened at the farm until we read about it the next day in the newspaper. So if we knew in advance, we never know what, for instance, you guys are doing, never know what you're doing. We just don't find out. even if you tell Marilee that, you might as well tell my grandmother, and she's been dead a while. Anyway, if we have that kind of information, and I'd be more than happy to share my email address with anybody who has anything going on at that farm, and I will just
So I-
get out there and,
Matt's working on this year. One of his things to work on is how to get our PIO, for
Yeah.
Public Works,
Yeah.
engaged with farm activities to address that thing. So it's on our webpage, and we're dispersing it out, sprinkling it out
Yeah.
there.
Once we get these things going, Kaylee and I've already talked to the public information team. And once we get things start moving, they're gonna start posting the information. But as it is, they're a little hesitant because we don't have any public access. To talk about how we do, but we don't. You can't
Well,
just go. And so there's no point in putting it on the parks page for the public until we start making movement so that people can actually, so that it is an actual benefit.
I get all that, but they need to know about it. They need to know when these open houses are. They need to know when the Parks Board meets that might be having the Heritage Farm on their agenda.
Yeah. and-
For me,
and I think
it's all about public
That's all part of
information.
it.
Really cap,
Yeah,
where-
there are other ways though that people
can
can
I
get
do?
involved, like, I mean, so like through the volunteering with the food bank. There's all kinds of
Yeah,
opportunities,
right.
volunteers, that's the majority of the public that come are hundreds of volunteers that are helping at the farm. So even at that is something that
Right.
people can get involved, or any class that's
Yeah,
at the
There's
farm.
lots of free
You can
opportunities for things.
attend or sign up any tour that's free, they can go to any of those tours. So it's just, you're right, it's all over the place.
Somebody,
There's
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what's
information
wrong with it.
There's no central
Then-
marketing.
So
Yeah.
once we
They-
get things start to move, that's what our team can do, because that's what they do, is they blast out information on, different websites and different media.
They blast out information for everything that's going on in public works. So there's gonna be a capacity issue.
Right.
You can't manage the Heritage Farm page in a way that there's daily information on it that.
Well, I think we talked about like
Yeah.
a calendar,
Yeah.
a calendar.
Yeah,
of
that's
just
all you
things that
need,
are
is a
going on.
calendar.
Yeah, and we have a calendar. We just need to
You
start getting.
share it. So when I send event
Well, it's
requests
online.
to you
It's already-
guys,
it's on the
those should
county
go on
website.
calendar.
It's not
Right.
accurate.
So,
Well, I laugh
yes.
because this room and today's meeting is on the county website, you can actually find it. And when I checked about usage of this room, I was told, oh, our calendar is never on the public website. And I thought,
Plus B one is not, so
Yeah,
what was
this
Keller
one.
talking about? So how, my understanding, and I'm probably wrong, but my understanding is there's a calendar, it's blank, but there is a calendar out on the Heritage Farm website. So it's there, the framework's there. Now Matt, don't blame Matt.
No, it's
Just, we just need to collect all the things that our partners are doing on there and start populating that. And then that becomes a mechanism to where others becomes value. So you actually, there is something there when you go to it. So
This is the calendar.
Yeah.
On the Heritage Farm website.
now, so we created the calendar. Now we just gotta work, and now we've got Matt. and
I have
we'll-
event things that just came to me the last couple of days that I will forward.
Yeah, and then I think
But are
moving
they
forward,
things
we're
people
trying to
can
get
come
Matt.
to?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that's been a big part of why I haven't pushed a lot of this stuff forward to Kaylee, is there things that, hey, this is awesome. All 5 people that are invited.
No,
are
if
thrilled.
they're open
And
to the
it's-
public and
Yeah.
they have to register ahead of time, but it's an event that, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
can't
what
find-
those event
I can't
requests
find
are.
the
It's at the bottom of the Heritage Farm website.
And we may have to place it to the top. But these are all good things that we need to improve on.
And
We call it a D.
Sandy, are you available?
To be quite frank.
the challenge is going to be for Isla and I is not necessarily that the information isn't out there, it's getting our people to look and
Tomorrow morning.
getting
I
them.
want,
I mean,
I want to set up a point system.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, that's
where
where
it's our challenge.
I mean, if you have a newsletter, you could
So-
just do Heritage Farm activities, and have to pay a link, and they can just click on that, and it can go straight to the calendar. When there's stuff on the calendar.
And we do have a newsletter, and it's 4 pages of condensed information, so it's still getting people to look at it.
Simplified, but appealing.
Yeah.
And also,
I went for the MRI yesterday.
beauty of one in my face is to bring your.
On the
Yeah, right there.
Thank you so much.